Tonight, Premier Tangilangi talks about the upcoming 53rd Pacific Leaders Meeting. The Chief Electoral Officer Darren Tolvaka announces Village Council nominations. And Australia Government funds $1 million rebuild of the BCN studios. Good evening and welcome to our BCN News Bulletin. I'm Mersa Takala. A special whakalofa atu to our viewers from across the region, thanks to our partners at Pacifica TV. Leading our bulletin tonight, Premier Dalton Tangilangi will be leaving later this week to attend the 53rd Pacific Leaders Forum in Tonga. The Secretary General of the United Nations will be attending the leaders' meeting as well. One of the most pressing issues for the Pacific leaders to discuss will be the situation in New Caledonia. Premier Tangilangi spoke to our senior reporter Esther Pavihi yesterday about the upcoming leaders' meeting.
Premier Dalton Tangilangi said that while climate change remains a key discussion topic at the leaders' meeting in Tonga next week, the situation in the French territory of New Caledonia, with the civil unrest and rioting over the past months, will likely be elevated as a priority discussion for the leaders.
I think it's going to be a collective decision between the leaders at the retreat, but I do keep up to date with what's happening out there. As we know, it's at the moment, it might come down for some higher level dialogue between the PIF's representations or representatives with the French government. Because I think at the moment, I think the French government sees that it's their territory and they can still sort of oversee what's happening there. And yeah, no doubt, I think that's one of the key subjects, but probably elevated a little bit higher now.
The planned Pacific Leaders mission to New Caledonia before this meeting in Tonga was deferred last week. Meanwhile, Premier Tangilangi says that having the Secretary General of the United Nations Antonio Guterres at the leaders' meeting is a great opportunity for the region to showcase our position as a region with the focus on peace and harmony and the pursuit of prosperity for our people.
I think the focus of the interest now is in the region. How can the region work collectively and talk about things that, or stick to our vision of peace and harmony and to be prosperous. And I think the Pacific's got that now to take their lead into the world. As we know, that the world is it's conflict and all over the place. So what can we do to play a part in trying to resolve or help with those situations for them? We're not going to help by joining, but we can help by lead by example how what it is what you achieve when you live in peace and harmony. I think that's what I've always said in the past, that the Pacific is going to lead by example. The United Nations Secretary General will be there. There'll be and there'll be opportunity for the youth meeting with him as well. It's been called, and that's why we'll send our youth member of the House. And others, but I think the key here, this is the opportune time for us for further on a bilateral level with the dialogue partners, those that we already have diplomatic ties with.
It's understood that American Samoa and Guam will be seeking associate membership to the Pacific Island Forum at this meeting. Aside from the main leaders summit, the Niue delegation will also be holding meetings with diplomatic partners and those interested in diplomatic relations with Niue. However, Premier Dalton Tangilangi says that these are just preliminary discussions. He will also be meeting with other leaders in the Polynesian Leaders Group, which he is currently the chair of. The Niue delegation to the Forum Leaders meeting is not as large as other countries because of costs, but the Premier is happy to have the Minister of Finance, Honourable Crosley Tatui, and the youngest member of the Niue Assembly, Rhonda Siakia Tomailunga, join the delegation this year.
Ideally, it would have been nice to take another minister and others, but the cost, because we bear the cost by our travels and that. But other countries, they go with 3, 4, 5 ministers, bigger countries. So but I'm happy that the Minister Cross will cover some side, and also Rhonda is there for the youth. She can also sit in some of the other meetings. that we can be collectively together if we go to some high-level bilaterals with the others, so they can also sort of learn and hear about all the discussions on that level. But yeah, looking forward for that. I think the good thing I'm pleased with that I'm not going to spend more time away, so be only for 6 days away or 5 days, which is good.
Premier Tagilangi and delegation are expected to be back on the island on Friday the 30th in time to vote in the public referendum on the proposed 4 constitutional amendments, as well as the village council elections scheduled for Saturday the 31st of August. Esther Pavihi for BCN News.
A total of 64 nominations were received by the Chief Electoral Officer, Darren Tovaka, at the close of nominations last week for the Village Council elections. 62 nominations accepted, 33 of them are women. In 2 of the small villages of Toi and Namakulu, all the nominations are women. The Village Council elections will take place on Saturday, 31st of this month, the same day as the public referendum on the 4 constitutional amendment bills. Here's more with Esther Pavihi.
On Tuesday morning, the Chief Electoral Officer, Darren Tovaka, provided public notice number 4 regarding the Village Council elections, advising the names of candidate nominations received and accepted by him. After midday today, these are the names of those nominated candidates for the Village Council elections. 3 villages had fewer than 5 names nominated. The villages of Vayea and Toi only had 3 candidates nominated. For the village of Vayea, Mary Talaisi, Takala Talaisi, and Toi Tama Talaisi. For the village of Toi, Lilivika Muimatangi, Paulino Tokimua, and Winita Leniseu Woods. The smallest village electorate on the island is the village of Namukulu with only 5 registered voters. They could only nominate 2 candidates. The Chief Electoral Officer, Darren Tovaka, said in the radio program yesterday that the law is clear. 1 voter can nominate 1 candidate. But Tovaka said the village can appoint officials, such as a treasurer and secretary for the village council, who don't have to be elected members. The 2 names nominated for the village of Namukulu are Kilimana Hilingutu and Whenongalaia Sionetuato. 4 villages will go to the polls come August 31st. These are the villages of Makefu, Liku, Lakapa and Mutalo. There were 6 candidates nominations received from Makefu: Sionetali Lolani, Etayana Poihanga, Marcus Puletama, Marianne Talangi, Charles Tohovaka and Erdi Judy Tohovaka. 6 candidates received nominations received for the village of Liku: Trina Kayuha, Christian Pomale, Newland Pomale, Sivakalipa Pulehetoa, Sionitasi Pulehetoa, and Simi Tominiko. The 6 candidate nominations received for the village of Lakapa: Tongariro Cornelio, Myrtle Mangatungia, Luando Siakia, Trevor Siakia, Ezra Tungiamana, and David Tungiavalu. 7 candidates' names were received for the village of Mutalo: Pelenato Born, Emeline Matangianga, Harry Seddon Parker, Jean Pulefolo, Meleki Toefasi, Dave Tongakilo, and Moka Helena. These are the names from the villages with 5 nominated candidates received. For Hikutavake, Embi Hipa, Olevai Pipitolu, Felicity Pulhetoa, Anthony Kagaz Tohovaka, and Peter Vaganofisi. For the village of Tuapa, Kulupatau Ikihele, Harris Ikitule, Halafo Mokalei, Priscilla Mokalei, Sione Pokau, Sione Tama. For the village of Alofitukelau, Sione Kaulima, Nia Pearson, Haven Siosikefu, Margaret Siosikefu, and Ane Strickland. For the village of Alofitonga, Robin Heko, Anthea Heko Harding, Eti Pasene Miziepo, Alana Fiafia Richmond Rex, and Narita Viliamu. For the village of Tamakautonga, Tafrato Huipunu Paola, Higitongia Puheke, Lavea Puheke, John Divine Talangi, and Matakaitina Tavita. For the village of Avasele, Hetutu Tama Hetutu, Taihia Hetutu, Emeline Laufoli, Jody Laufoli, and Tifanga Tupuiliu. For the village of Hakupu, Pacific Enterprise, Mautama, Patlin Silingi, Andre Siohane, Dempster Tomailunga, and Itzi Viviani Tukuitonga. Esther Pavihi for BCN News.
The public referendum to decide on the 4 proposed amendments to the Niue Constitution will be held on Saturday next week, on the same day as the Village Council elections. The staff of the Niue Assembly and the Chief Electoral Officer have started a public awareness campaign on radio since last week, this week, and 2 sessions next week to inform on the process of the public referendum. This is the first public referendum to change the Constitution in more than 20 years since the first amendments in 1992. The 4 constitution amendment bills are to change the name of the leader of government from Premier to Prime Minister. The second amendment is to increase the number of the cabinet from 4 to 6 by adding 2 new ministers. The third proposed change is to extend the term of the new assembly from 3 to 4 years. And the fourth amendment is to change the name of the Auditor General to New Zealand, replacing the Audit Office of New Zealand. The polling stations will open on Saturday, 31st August from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. For more information, please tune in to Radio Sunshine on Tuesday and Thursday next week from 10 a.m. More information will also be available on social media. The Government of Australia will be funding the rebuild of the BCN studios. In a media release on Tuesday, the Honourable Pat Conroy, the Minister of International Development and the Pacific, announced funding of $1 million Australian to rebuild the Niue national broadcaster BCN studios. According to the statement, this is in line with Australia's development policy, as this funding will enable BCN studios' ongoing media presence in Niue, which supports public debate, democratic norms, and robust governance. Here's more with Esther Pavihi.
The BCN building at Whanokula was funded by the Australian government and built by a local contractor. It was officially opened in October 1995. 28 years later, the Australian government has again stepped up to help rebuild the studios of the national broadcaster. In October 2022, Australia's Foreign Affairs Minister, Honourable Penny Wong, visited BCN to officially switch on the ABC channel on TV Niue. Foreign Affairs Minister Wong was shown the damages caused by the fire in May of 2020. At that time, it had been 2 years, and the BCN staff were working out of makeshift studios to provide TV Niue services, Radio Sunshine, and produce the news for radio, television, online, and also on social media. BCN News spoke with Australian High Commissioner to Niue, Her Excellency Katie Stewart, about the announcement made by the Minister for International Development and the Pacific, Honourable Pat Conroy, on the funding to repair the BCN studios.
It was with a great pleasure that Minister Conroy announced $1 million Australian for the repair of the studios, BCN studios. It's been a long time coming, with the fire in 2020, sadly destroying some of the critical infrastructure that is so important to Niue to broadcast public information during, as part of the National Disaster Management Plan.
BCN's role as the national broadcaster and the main media outlet, with the only radio station on the island to reach the public during cyclone seasons, is recognised by the Australian government, with the statement saying that Australia is committed to helping strengthen climate-resilient critical infrastructure in Niue and across the disaster-prone Pacific region.
Climate-resilient infrastructure is a real priority for the Australian government, particularly in the Pacific with the cyclone-prone areas, really a joint priority for Australia and Niue, and so the Australian government was very pleased to provide this funding, and that Minister Conroy announced yesterday.
Meanwhile, the much-anticipated 7th Pacific Media Summit, the largest meeting of news and media practitioners and news outlets in the Pacific, will be held here in Niue next month. Australia has also provided assistance through the Niue Media Association to co-host the closing and opening ceremonies of that summit.
The Media Summit is very much within Australia's development policy around and long-term support for the Pacific media in terms of free and public debate and about democratic norms, and these are some of the themes of that the summit will look at. Australia's able to provide some, and very proud to provide some funding for the opening and closing ceremony, and it links nicely to the BCM project that was announced yesterday, and work is commencing this month. And again, something that I'm sure some of the themes around climate resilient infrastructure might come up during that summit as well.
Work on the rebuild by a local contractor will begin in November this year and is expected to take several months. Esther Pavihi for BCN News.
The Minister for the Ministry of Social Services, Honourable Sonia Talangi, is pleased to present the official logo commemorating the 50th anniversary for the Niue Constitution. To commemorate this significant occasion, a logo has been designed to highlight and celebrate Niue's 50 years of self-government. Consulting with various officials and elders within the community, various mottos were proposed for Cabinet's consideration. The approved motto that accompanies the logo is to stand firm, secure, and treasure our Niue. The logo may be used in government departments, agencies, community organizations, and partners involved in official activities related to the 50th anniversary. The logo must not be sold for profit. Authorization to use the logo requires prior approval from the Office of the Minister for Social Services at Falefono 2. On Friday last week, the USP alumni held their second of the series of panel discussions about the Constitution and 50 years of self-government, which was attended by former and current public servants. The topic was the role and function and the constitutional authority of the Public Service Commission. Discussions ranged from some of the key events that happened when the Public Service Commission was in Wellington, such as the redundancies that took place in the early 1990s that saw a drop in the population when those public servants and their families left the island, and the teachers' strike in early 2000s. Here's more with Esther Pavihi.
The panel for the discussions included the chairperson of the Public Service Commission, Ida Talangi Hekesi, Minister of Social Services, Honourable Sonia Talangi, the Member of Parliament from Lakapa and the President of the Niue Youth Council, Rhonda Sekia Tomailunga, the Deputy Secretary of Government, Gayleen Tasmania, and the Government's Solicitor General, Justin Kamupala. In the 1992 First Amendment to the Niue Constitution, the Public Service Commission was localised with the appointment of 3 commissioners, acting primarily as the government's employing authority. One of the key events that took place not long after this was the teachers' strike in 2000, and several other changes since then, including the implementation of the 4-day week and the transformation of the public sector. There was some mention of the report by Dr. Matangialofi Luayufi, who was commissioned in 2011 to review the public service and instigated the transformation project, but that report was not made public. Questions from the audience raised concerns about the consistency of government policies to support the private sector, as well as a concern about the lack of superannuation cover for more than 170 public servants. There was also a concern raised over the lack of insurance for public servants working in high-risk areas. The questions were responded to by the panelists, with the chairperson of the Commission, Ida Talangi Hekesi, saying that the work of the Public Service Commission is not easy, as they have to ensure the effectiveness and the efficiency of the service and also look after the well-being of the people who work in the public service. Esther Pavihi for BCN News.
A Niue agriculture and fisheries stakeholders and community workshop on developing tailored climate and ocean products was held this week at the Millennium Hall. The workshop was well attended by members and representatives from the different villages. Manager of the Climate and Ocean Support Program in the Pacific under the Bureau of Meteorology Australia, Celine Becker, shares more on what her organization does.
I've been working with Niue since 2008 under the Pacific Island Climate Prediction Project, PICPP, and over the last decade I've been working on the Climate and Ocean Support Program for the Pacific COSPAC, where we're working closely with 15 Pacific nations to build their climate and ocean and sea level services.
Becker explains more on the significance of the workshop.
So the work we're currently doing with the Niue Meteorological Service is through the GCF UNEP CISPAC 5 program, and under that program we're working with 5 Pacific countries including Niue to strengthen their capacity to communicate climate, ocean and sea level information to communities. So our aim over these next 2 days is to build tailored climate services for specific sectors, which is agriculture and fisheries, and use by communities. So the aim is that through collaboration between the Niue Met Service and DAF and communities, that there will be a product that can be used for their agricultural practices and fishing practices to build resilience to climate, ocean and extreme events.
She also emphasized the importance of traditional practices and knowledge for climate and oceans for the people of Niue.
I'd also really like to acknowledge the traditional knowledge activities that the Niue Meteorological Service has been undertaking with the communities for nearly a decade now. Back in 2015, under the COSPAC program, we established a traditional knowledge database with the Niue Met Service, and since then they've been working with communities to collect and monitor information about the traditional knowledge for agricultural and ocean practices.
Representatives from the various stakeholders were part of the 2-day session. A performing arts workshop was held on Tuesday afternoon at the Hakupu Hall. Award-winning playwright Lecky Jackson Burke and actor Hans Favai Jackson, who both have links to Niue, facilitated this session. Their main message to the kids and young people on the Rock is that representation and the value of their art and culture is important.
We came here to film the video clip, but then one of our cousins reached out to say if we can do a workshop. And so we said yes, of course, because today is our day off. We're supposed to be resting and swimming in the ocean, but instead we're coming here to sing and dance with the children, to show them it's important, that representation is important, but also to show them the value of our arts and our culture, and to show them, because of our Niue culture and our language, me and Hans have a job, and me and Hans are able to travel the world to do all these amazing things. It's not because of other stuff, it's because of the power within our culture. So today is all about giving back to our community and also our chance to collaborate and work with them, to share with them what we do, and for them to see themselves in us represented on stage and on screens and stuff like that. But also for us it's fun because we just want to come back to where we come from, where we pay homage to where we came from, because we come from here from Niue. And so we're looking forward to working with the local community and the local kids.
Minister of Social Services Honourable Sonia Talangi was grateful to the duo and their team for taking time off to conduct a session on their work and achievements as artists.
We're doing an interactive workshop, so it will be a mix of goli, lolongo, acting, confidence building, some games and stuff like that. Whakawheleweia, getting to know each other, and just what we just want to do is just connect with them and start the conversation, so we can. This is one of many to come. We've done workshops here in Niue in the past, in the high school at Baliasi, and this is just another one that we were able to do while we're here on this trip, to give back and offer and to connect and network and go whakalataha with the young people here.
Lecky is the first Pacifica playwright to win the Creative New Zealand Todd New Writers Bursary Grant in 2018 and co-authored the successful Inky Pinky Ponky play in 2015. A representative from the Cyclone testing station in Australia was on the island last week, conducting a one-week cyclone wind load national consultation with the various stakeholders focused on buildings that can withstand cyclones on the island. Dr. Jeff Botten is an associate professor at the station, told BCN News that we need to strongly construct our buildings to resist future tropical cyclones in Niue.
So a tropical cyclone is different from a normal wind. It is very strong, it persists for many hours, and it really tests our buildings. We need to build our buildings very strongly to resist these events. Niue had a really bad one in 2004. That's not the last cyclone that Niue will see. There will be others. And with climate change, we're predicting that tropical cyclones are going to get more severe in the future. So it is really important that Niueans build their buildings to withstand these tropical cyclones and potentially even stronger ones in the future.
He explained on the objective of the consultation.
We've been working in the Pacific for a number of years, and the government of Niue invited me over to talk with them about how to make buildings more resilient in the future. Yesterday we had a big session with the private sector. This afternoon I'll be talking with the government Department of Utilities, and this morning I'll be talking a bit with high school students. So a lot of different people to get the message across of what we have to do to make our buildings more resilient, so that the next cyclone that goes through makes a lower impact on the economy of Niue.
After the consultation, he will be writing up a report for the Niue government, highlighting areas where Niue can provide the capacity to withstand future cyclones and the impacts of climate change.
Yeah, I'll be doing a report for the government, talking about areas where I have seen great strides made by Niue, There's a lot of really good work being done in Niue, but there are some things that have to be addressed to give us the capacity to be able to handle those stronger cyclones in the future. Climate change is coming. Already last year we saw Cyclone Lola, which was a Category 5 cyclone in northern Vanuatu, at a similar latitude to Niue, so that they are around.
Niue High School Assistant Principal Moira Jackson said it was a great opportunity to share ideas with the New Zealand Pacifica Principal Association's 18-member team that recently were on the island. She said the development workshop was a chance to update their staff with a change in education, as well as students and staff well-being, which is crucial.
We hope also to establish relationships with them so that we can continue our communications with them to support each other, so that when they return back to their schools, we can continue so that we can, hopefully send some of our staff here to go across, and some of their staff there to come here as like an exchange program, so that we can learn from each other and also, help with the resources, help with our infrastructure, help with the budget, just anything in general to help our education, to strengthen our education here at high school.
The New Zealand Pacifica Principal Association is aimed at proactively advancing the cause of Pacifica education in the region. The village of Tamakotonga hosted another successful annual village show day last Saturday, attracting hundreds of their friends, relatives, and visitors to the island.
The village council chairperson Hikitongia Puhake in his speech thanked and acknowledged the contributions from the people of the village, including those living in Australia and New Zealand. Puhake said that he is always proud of the spirit of cooperation between the people of his village with their families living abroad. The Assemblyman for Tamakotonga, Riki Makani, spoke and acknowledged the elders of the village, recalling the work they did more than 50 years ago to develop the village. He spoke about the manual labour to dig trenches for the water and power reticulation to reach the village, and the blasting of the sea tracks to make it accessible for the fishermen of the village. Premier Dalton Tangilangi and other dignitaries joined the celebrations at Tamakotonga, including the High Commissioner of New Zealand, His Excellency Mark Gibb, who spoke about the support by New Zealand and the significant relationship between Niue and New Zealand.
But we also provide support in the community as well, and if you look around, like I'm looking at the swings over there, I recall, I think it was back in 2018, we provided some support so Tamakotonga could just build a children's playground. So again, if you look around, that relationship between Niue and New Zealand, it endures, it's unique. And when we celebrate the Constitution in October, it's going to be good between New Zealand and Niue, but it's also going to mean other countries are going to look and they're going to say that's a really unique relationship, and it's probably not mirrored anywhere else in the world.
Australia's High Commissioner, Her Excellency Katie Stewart, also acknowledged the hard work of the people to put on the show and the contributions of the people of Tamakotonga who call Australia home.
It was an honour for Australia to provide funds for block printing, and to see it put to such good use is a real pleasure today. I'd like to invite anybody who might be thinking about putting in a grant application, please do, for any great idea you have for developing the community. The round opens in February next year.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Social Services, Honourable Sonia Talangi, in her speech used the opportunity to encourage the people to turn up to vote at the upcoming Village Council elections and the public referendum on the 4 constitutional amendments on Saturday, the 31st of August. Minister Talangi thanked the people of Tamakotonga for a beautiful and bountiful annual show day. The next village to host their annual show day will be the village of Tuapa in early September. Esther Pavi for BCN News.
And on our feature segment tonight, BCN News had the privilege of having a sit-down interview with renowned Liku-based award-winning artist Mark Cross. With a career spanning over 45 years as an artist, Cross is one of the Pacific region's leading contemporary realist painters who now divides his time between his studios in Niue and New Zealand. An engineer by profession, renowned artist and writer Mark Cross shared briefly on his upbringing in West Auckland and his love for the art that was inspired by his mother.
Grew up in West Auckland and attended Mount Albert Grammar School. I didn't go to university. I went straight into engineering training in precision engineering, and spent 4 years at that before leaving and developing my art. So I always did it while at school, although I didn't take it in a school subject. I did it in my spare time while I was training as an engineer, and I slowly played around with different ideas and studied a bit myself, and eventually made it to Niue, where I sort of got a little bit more serious about actually selling it and developing my style.
The 70-year-old shares more on his genre of artwork based on realism inspired by the human conditions and the environment. He says some of the challenges have been logistics, especially shipping his artwork from Niue, and the language barrier during international exhibitions.
The style I've eventually developed is, you'd call it realism. Some people call it photorealism, but it's not quite photorealism. But during my earlier time, I thought, well, okay, I've learned how to create a painting that looks photographic, if you like, but now I want to take it to another level. So it's more than a photo, and so I started to put figures in my work.
His work has taken him as far as Portugal and Switzerland through his solo and group exhibitions. Mark and his wife Ahi own the Tahi Ono Art Gallery that operates out of the commercial centre. You have to have passion, is his advice to any young person wishing to pursue a career in the art sector.
You have to leave to learn a bit. Niue is great to actually, as a practitioner, it's a great place to do it. But to learn to get into find a market, meet the right people, and you have to have a real passion for it. So, I mean, you can't, and it is a difficult road, but ultimately if you're motivated and you've got the passion, you could do like Marcus Heeper, for instance. Grew up in Niue, got school certificate back then, and eventually went to Elam, Auckland Art School. So he's doing quite well now, but it's taken many years, 20 years more to get established. So it's not an easy thing. I wouldn't want to put anyone off, but if they're really passionate, but you really do have to have that focus and passion.
One of the highlights of his career is his ongoing work on the Hikulangi Sculpture Park in Liku and group exhibitions in New Zealand and Australia. More of his paintings can now be found in many private and corporate collections in Australasia, America, and Europe. And that's our news bulletin for tonight. You can join us next Tuesday for our Wangahau Bulletin. Until then, good evening.